Hello everyone, I hope you're well. So this video that I'm filming is a bit of a somber one. I think it's probably the most serious video that I've got on my channel. It's just going to be about my experience growing up here in England as a Black British individual, with everything that's happened, the killings in America and other individuals sharing their experiences. I thought I would share mine too. I am the daughter of immigrants. Both my mother and father moved over from Jamaica at different times. My dad came over as part of the British Army, so he served, I believe, for 9 years in the army. And yeah, he had a very interesting story coming over from Jamaica. He actually guarded Rudolf Hess at Spandau prison, which is an interesting fact. And when I went to Poland and went to Auschwitz and saw and learned all about the Second World War and all of the things and atrocities that happened there, in a way I kind of felt closer to him, because Rudolf Hess was the governor of the concentration camp. I can just hear my son crying. Yeah, so Rudolf Hess was in charge there, and I felt closer to my dad in a way, because he had guarded him at that prison in Germany once he was captured. He always used to tell me stories about that. Came to the UK as a teenager and had all her schooling here, and eventually they met in the 80s through a mutual friend. And I grew up in Kent, the Garden of England, a lovely place. Lots of lovely, fond memories growing up there and being around lots of different national heritage sites, and there's lovely zoos there and lots of lovely things to do as a child and take children to see. But there's a bit of a dark side to my upbringing, because I was the only black child in the entirety of my primary school. So where do I begin with this? There's so many things that I actually got emotional thinking about the things that I'm about to speak about and making notes about them so that I cover everything, and talking to my husband about it. There's some things I hadn't even told him. I just completely had blocked it out, because the brain has a way of doing this when things are so traumatic and affect you so much that you just have to block it out. So yeah, I actually got a bit emotional thinking about everything. But in primary school, I had a couple close friends growing up, but there were a number of instances where I really suffered as a young child. I distinctly remember the moment when I realised that, and not realised, but just discovered that I was black. For the longest time, I thought that every child was the same. We're all the same. I never saw different colours and race and things like that. I remember when I was out playing with some friends just along our street, like cycling up and down our street. I must have been about 6, and I think I was with a neighbour's child, and I can't remember the distinct words, but it was a comment that was made about me and about the child and how we're different and how I'm black. And that was when I realised there is a difference between all of us and my friends, because I had all Caucasian friends and it was just me. Back to primary school, I remember there was a time when, and it was actually a friend's parent that reminded me of this a few months back, reminded me that they actually had to come down to the school because their daughter was told that they shouldn't play with me. She shouldn't play with me because I'm black. So she was told that, seeing as I am a different race and different colour to her, that she shouldn't play with me. And at that age, 5-6 years old, it's not the fault of the child, it's the parents. There was a meeting had at the school with my parents, and I believe the child's parents, and my friend's parents as well. I remember being at that school and just being on my own during playtimes and sitting down on a bench and reading my books. I was a bit of an early child, and I think this contributed to it, because I was so isolated. I would just open my books and transform into another world and go into the world of whatever that book was about. So I loved reading. It made me who I am today. I love reading now, and I find it really easy to study, and hence 2 degrees and trying for others, because I just enjoy studying, I enjoy reading. So racism is never a positive thing. That's something that I channeled my energy into, and all those negative things that happened. Also, while I was in primary school, in my class, I remember there were students that told me that I was dirty. There were students that told me that in the older years, told me, I remember, to put my hands against the wall. And I remember standing there like this, putting my hands against the wall, and they action spray painting and said that this is how I was created to be black, because black people just all stand against the wall, and that's how they're spray painted with black paint, and that's how they become black, because our hands are their colour, Caucasian colour, white colour. So I remember being told that. I remember being told I was the colour of poo, and I remember being told that I was also the colour of chocolate, and being likened to these things. So these things, they sound trivial, they sound light, but they stay with you as a child. And being likened to the colour of feces, it's not good for a child's self-esteem, and I know I'm not alone with being told these things. On a more serious note, I remember my parents being told at the school by teachers that I was not going to get very far in life, that I would not end up being successful or doing much with my life, despite being quite a high achiever in school. They were still told these things, and it's just baffling. I also remember when I was a child in these classes that I would always get told that I was a chatty person and disruptive, like, because I would chat so much. But in order to chat, you need two people. I couldn't be talking to myself, and it would always be me that would get sent out, and I'd have to sit outside the classroom. It would be me that would be kept back. It would be me that had to go to see the head teacher, and the other person would never happen to. And as I said, I was the only black student in the entire school, so of course it was me that got singled out, and I remember that quite clearly. Not to mention, my year 3 teacher made an example of me because I liked to answer questions, and I was always eager, with my hand up, waving, knew the answer, and I'm assuming this irritated her, and she made an example of me by ignoring me putting my hand up. And it wasn't to answer the question, it was because I needed the bathroom. And I think she knew that, because, you know, as a child, you like hold yourself and you're like, and I was wiggling, and she let me wet myself. And at this point, she said, told me to stand up and told me off, saying that it wasn't me to answer the question, it was someone else, and to give someone else a chance. And obviously I couldn't hold myself, so I wet myself, I filled my shoes, it was all down my legs, and I remember being in floods of tears. And this was in front of the whole class. Very embarrassing. Fast forward to secondary school. Everybody's excited to go to secondary school. I'm an only child, and we didn't grow up with a ton of money. I don't come from a wealthy background, wealthy family. My parents worked very, 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 very hard for everything that we had. They made me feel as if we were the wealthiest family. I never went without anything. They gave me everything that I wanted. And I'm so thankful for that, and feel very, very blessed to have the parents that I had. And they even got me tutors to make sure that anything that the teachers were neglecting to support me with, it was supplemented by tutors. So when I went to secondary school, tutoring continued. I was in the grammar stream, or the top set, I don't know, depends what school you go to, what it's called, but top set, grammar stream. And I was the only black girl in that class. Every single class, only black girl. And it was really tough. Lots and lots of things happened. I lived about half an hour from my school by train. So I would get the train to school without my parents. There was a group of us from the area that we lived in that used to get the train. So it was a very early start and late to come back. And so many things happened on that train journey. The people I would get the train with would shut me in between the two carriages of the train, lock me in there, and pull the window down and pour water over me if my hair was straightened, and it would cause it to curl up, and then go back to its natural state. And this was all very entertaining for them. So I'd be picked on that way. And I remember going back home and I couldn't even bring myself to tell my mum what had happened. She'd ask me, "Why is your hair wet? I just straightened it, blah, blah, blah." And I couldn't bring myself to tell her. And this was like late into, I was grown, 14 maybe, 13, 14. Again, at school, I was isolated. I remember sitting on my own, reading books by myself, and being told that I shouldn't be played with. Remember being roughed up by students, boys and girls. This wasn't just girls. There were a lot of boys as well. I remember having snot wiped on me. I remember having my bag like strewn across the grass, across the train as well, and I'd have to scramble to pick up my things so I wouldn't miss my stop. It was never like overtly calling me the N-word, calling me like things, derogatory terms associated with being black in secondary school. It was just being picked on, and solely me, only me. And I think this really affected me. Like I sometimes lashed out, and I sometimes was quite nasty to other people as a result. Like, it really did affect me. And then I changed school for sixth form. I went to a grammar school that was about 15 minutes away, and I remember a teacher there. He was very clear and very honest with me. He told me I would never become a doctor, that I was just not smart enough and I was not going to get the grades to become a doctor, and I should just give up and do something else. Things changed when I got to undergrad. When I got to do my bachelor's of science, things were very, very different. I went to a university in London, and I was surrounded by so many different cultures and backgrounds. It was so rich, just the different cultures, and the fact that there was an Afro-Caribbean society, that there were even Asian societies and other cultures, other ethnic backgrounds. It was just so nice being around that, coming from where I'd come from, where I'd grown up. I loved my undergraduate 4 years. It was great. But then fast forward, medical school. I'm 22. I was in medical school from 22 to up until this year. So almost 28. I took 2 years out, but yeah, almost 28. I was not expecting the level of racism I experienced in the last 2 years in Cyprus as I have. When I first moved to Cyprus, there was a lot of, "Where are you from? Where are you really from?" When you answer that you're from the UK, they do not understand there that you can be Black British, that you can have been born there and identify and call yourself British because you grew up there and were born there. And that was just completely mind-boggling. So I had a lot of those questions. I've had friends that were asked how much it was for them to clean a house for someone. They have 2 degrees, one from an Ivy League university and a top university in London, and they were still asked these questions outside of the medical school. So obviously we go there. Maybe they just thought, black skin, you must be a cleaner. When I used to walk around the hospital and wear my white coat, a lot of questions about where I was from, and a lot of curiosity. People used to stare at me a lot, were very confused. Both myself and my friends, sometimes other black friends also on the course, were refused by patients to have procedures done by us, whether it's taking blood, cannulation. All throughout my life I've experienced racism, and I think the purpose of me sharing these experiences is just to raise further awareness. It's not something that I've ever spoken about or ever put on any platform or ever highlighted. So I just wanted to put it out there that other black friends of mine that have shared, you are not alone. We all went through this together and all experienced this in some way, shape or form. And it is not a bed of roses for those of my viewers that are not in the UK. It's not a bed of roses here in the UK. My friends that are in the Caribbean and in other parts of Africa, it may be viewed as having a better life. In some respects, it definitely is. And in some respects, it's really not. You can't get away from racism, and you can't really seem to escape from it, even in this day and age in 2020. And although I have not been the subject of violent physical attacks, it was still rough growing up here, and has definitely shaped the person I've become in negative and positive ways. I'm a lot more resilient, I believe, because of these things that have happened. And my parents always ingrained in me that I have to do and try twice as hard as Joe next to me, because of the colour of my skin, and because I have to make up for what that skin emulates and what that skin fills people with when they see me, whether it's positive or negative views. I have had so many times comments saying, "You're so well spoken," and people mean you're so well spoken for a black girl. And I've had job interviews where they've been confused when I turn up after looking at my CV, looking at my grades, my schooling, and my name as well. Confused when I turn up and I'm a black girl with an afro. It's very confusing to them. I hope this has been edifying for some people. I know that there's a movement at the moment for other races and other backgrounds to learn more about the black experience. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.